guys a couple things to start off. Do any of you guys have daughters with like super tangly hair? And it's like every time you brush it, it's like a war. So these wet brushes are like awesome. Yeah, they are the best. So some people still don't know about them. So I figured I would just kind of throw that little tidbit out there. They are really good. Girl's haircut, or just a girl's haircut in general, you want the hair to be all wet. So it's best to do it like right when you get out of the shower, just because it's hard to get it all saturated with water when you're spraying it. So I usually like to just do if you have a shampoo bowl, great. If not, then do it right when they get out of the shower. Okay, so I always like to cut the hair from where they part it. If they change their part a lot, then I'll do it in the middle. Do you part your hair on this side a lot? Should we ask your mom? Oh, there you are. I'm like, where is she? Does she always part it there? Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna cut it from there. Some little girls, it's kind of like they do it different all the time. So if they do that, I would cut it from the middle. So I always like to start by sectioning it, and I just do from behind the ear forward. So I always cut the back first. Sorry guys. Is that a little better? So I just do from the side go all the way down to the back of their ear, and then forward. So that's gonna be one section. Am I hurting you? No? And then here's gonna be our next section. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just gonna kind of help you control the haircut. If you're working with too much hair, it makes it a little harder. So I just like to work with less hair at a time. And then, so if you have, most little girls have like that super thin, really wispy hair. So if they have that, you don't need to section off the back because you're not working with enough hair to really worry about. Are you falling off? Yeah, are you good now? Yeah. So she has like, you know, like not thick hair, but enough that I'm going to section it off into another section just so I'm working with a smaller piece. So then I just go through right here and I go, depending on how thick it is, I'll just go from like right here and just do like half and half. And if you guys have any questions or any of this, like just throw them out. This is not very casual. Okay. And I only have 2 clips, so I'm going to steal one of my clips from the front. So I section it off like that. The biggest thing you want to remember with girls' haircuts, and I'm going to try and show you guys a haircut that you can do on anyone. So I mean, even if you wanted to cut like your sister's hair, you know. So this isn't just a kid's haircut. So the first thing you want to remember when you're doing a woman's haircut is just to comb like crazy, because you want all the hair to be laying flat and straight. So when I'm first starting, I go through and I just comb, you know, just make sure you have all of the hairs, go all the way down the neck, so you make sure you have all the hair in there. So now that it's laying flat, also another tip for kids haircuts, get a kid's cape. I used to have one, but it got lost in our move. But it makes it a lot easier because then it's not falling off of them all the time. So her mom wants me to cut about 1 inch off. So I'm gonna start, I always start in the middle. I'm trying to think how I can do this where you guys can like see. So the number one thing you wanna know when you're cutting with shears is you're gonna comb down. You're gonna use your fingers as your guide, kind of like what Sydney was showing you guys. So you're gonna use your fingers, and I always cut right below my fingers. So if I want, so that's about how much I'm gonna cut off, maybe a little bit, yeah, probably about that. So I'm gonna go down to where I want it, and I'm using my fingers as a guide, and then I'm gonna cut like that. One thing you wanna remember when you're cutting, something you wanna remember when you're cutting and you're trying to get a straight cut, is when you have to hold your arm like this. You want your arm to be straight, because if I hold my arm like that, obviously it goes down. So that was a very common mistake made like in the beginning of beauty school, is you kind of just, you'll start off right, and then as you go throughout the haircut, you kind of just get like lazier and lazier, and you just have to always remember, keep my arm up so that my fingers are, so that your guide is straight. So I'm gonna go through and cut this bottom part. And another thing to remember when you're cutting girls' hair is, so hair grows very unevenly. So sometimes sometimes the side that you sleep on at night, that side of hair will grow longer. Like, have you guys ever gone into a haircut and you're like, one side's like this, one side's like this, and it wasn't like that when you got it cut? Sometimes sorry, she's like freaking out there. Sometimes one side will grow longer than the other. So if you started off at 1 inch and you started cutting 1 inch, as long as you're keeping your arm straight, if all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm cutting off longer over here, it might not be your fault, it might just be that it was uneven, if that makes sense. And you want to pull all of this, you're just going to be pulling back straight. And then you can always go and check it, just like this. Just kind of pull it down, make sure it's even all throughout. So then I'm going to put my next section down and just comb, get all those little knots out of there. And you want all of this to be going back, which is why I like to section it from the front, because this hair back here doesn't go back. So basically all the hair that normally when it's dry goes back like that, that's what you want to be cutting backwards, if that makes sense. So then, yeah.
Anything different with curly hair, or do you just
curly hair, I cut the same and you just hold it. Yeah, you just pull it really tight. That's when it helps to have it really, really wet if it's curly. So now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm just going to cut my guide. And sorry, I forgot to tell you, when you tuck your chin down like that. So you also want to have their chin tucked in like that when you're doing the back. So comb it down, and then can you guys kind of see where my guide is? So that's where I'm going to want to cut again. You just want to find your guide from the first cut. Sorry, Anna, are my hands freezing? My hands feel like icicles right now. So her hair was longer on the sides than it was on the back. So I cut 1 inch from the middle, and then it's kind of going longer because her sides grew out a little bit longer than the back did. So when you're going closer to the ears, you just want it to lay down more like that as opposed to all back, if that makes sense. So you'll kind of do the middle part straight back. This part will kind of be still in the back, but you want it to go down closer to the ear so that she doesn't have, if you do it all pulling it back, then when it comes over here, there'll be a hole. So you want to make sure you're kind of doing it where it would naturally lay. Okay, so now we're going to do the sides. Put your head up for me. Spin you around. Okay, so when you're doing the sides, you're going to do the same thing, just comb. The hardest thing with kids' hair, and she's actually being awesome, kids usually do not sit still, as you guys know. And it's really hard to do sides on little kids because when you comb them, they go like this. So, which is fine when you're combing. Go ahead and just let them do what they're gonna do. But then before I cut, I always hold their head up straight. And I did have quite a few kids that they seriously like, I don't know if they have a crooked head or what, but I can literally not get them, I can't get them to keep their head straight. So I've even had sometimes like their parrot like hold their head because I'll comb it and tell them to keep their head straight, and then as soon as I go to cut, they go like this. So you really want to pay attention to that with kids' cuts because they just don't know that they're tilting their head. But Anna's being awesome because she's 5.5, right? So then you're going to go to the side, and what you're going to do is connect it to the back, and you're going to find that guide again. So can you guys see? That's where I need to cut. So you're going to keep going in a straight line. And make sure your elbow's still up, and you're going to connect that line right there, and just connect it to the front. And then see how when I combed it, she kind of pulled her head down a little bit. So you just want to make sure before you're cutting that their head's up straight. And then make sure, kids sometimes have really sensitive heads, but you want to make sure you're getting all this hair. Sometimes the hair will kind of go like that, and you think you're combing all of it, but really it's back there. So you just want to make sure you're getting all of that hair. And sometimes you might have to kind of poke their ear a little bit to make sure you're getting it out from behind the ear. But it'll be worth it so they don't have a goofy haircut. Okay, so The front on a lot of women's hair kind of tapers, you know, sometimes it's like kind of short to long. So usually what I do with that, because that's kind of what hers does, because you want to at least cut something off so it's healthy up there, but I don't want to obviously connect that. So see how it kind of tapers down a little bit? So you can kind of just point cut it or slide cut it, and you're just going to kind of go like this. So I'm cutting the same, I'm cutting about 3/4 of an inch to an inch off of that section, but I'm just tapering it in so that she still has that tapered look, but it's healthy, basically. So I'm gonna turn you this way. You're being so good. You are like the easiest kid's haircut I've ever done. You are awesome. Okay, so it's a little thicker on this side, so I'm gonna section it off again. And then again, you just want to connect it to the back. So kind of connect whatever's back there to the front. Okay, and when you're doing the front, you want their head to be up straight. That's perfect right there. So the trick the whole time you're doing the perimeter is you just want to find your guide. So as long as you cut your first piece straight and even, you should be good the rest of the time, as long as you remember to keep your arm up and as long as you can find your guide. And if you ever can't find your guide, then do smaller sections, because sometimes the hair that you're putting over is just too thick and you can't see it underneath. So if you ever can't find that, then just work with smaller sections and you'll be able to see it. Perfect. You are doing so good. And then make sure you get it all behind their ear again. Just like that. You need to for me. Perfect. So the biggest thing you want to remember with kids cuts is just, keep your arm up. And then you also you want to be paying attention to their head all the time, because if that's where you'll see mistakes, is you'll do a haircut thinking you're doing great, and then you get done and you're like, whoa, why is it like this? Because they just automatically, they just can't keep their heads up straight. So you have to remind them the whole time to keep their head up straight. And be watching them. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing in the front because she has some tapering up here. So you can also do it, I can't remember how I did last time, but you can do it how I did it, the slide cut, or you can also just kind of come this way and just go and kind of slide down. You want to make sure it's combed. So you're going to kind of point cut into it, if that makes sense. Okay, does anyone want to see layers, or is that like too much? So that's pretty much it. So then at the end, you just want to go through and check it all. And then I'm sure you guys have all seen your hairstylist do this, but you just want to go through and check that the back's all even. Come in the front. A lot of times little girls' hair, or not just little girls' hair, girls' hair in general, the part that they side on will stay longer because it falls more forward. So a lot of times I have to come in the front and fix that. So you see how the front is way longer? So how you do that is you can bring this hair forward right here. So you're gonna get kind of like what would be the bangs if she had bangs. So there's my shortest layer over here, and that's just because she has those like fine hairs that are short on this side, and then her hair is really healthy along on this side, so it goes really long on the side. So you can kind of just connect that, and you can just kind of point cut and just go boop, 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 like that. And then when you bring it back over, go ahead and put your head up again. You just kind of check it and make sure it still goes into your guide. So I'm gonna trim off this side a little bit because it's going a little bit longer. You are doing so good, girl. Do you like getting your hair cut? Yeah? Okay. See, and that side's still a little bit longer, so you're just gonna keep checking it until it evens out. And it's just because it's so much longer and thicker on that side. So when it falls forward, it'll automatically be longer. So you just kind of trim what you need to make it even out. Okay. Do you want me to do layers on her real fast?
If you want to show them, that's totally great.
Okay. I'll just.
Layers.
Do you want layers in your hair? Yeah. So I'll just show you some really basic layers real fast. So what you're gonna do, I always start in the back. Just some really easy basic layers. You're just gonna, are you falling out? You good? You're gonna take a section like this, a pie slice. And you don't wanna take more than you can hold in your hands because then it'll get hard. So I'm gonna start with this much. So if you're wanting super, super short layers, which we don't on her, but if I were to do super short layers and she wanted them, you know, pretty stacked, then I could hold it up like this and I could cut off that whole entire thing, and then when it laid, it would be like boop, 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 and you'd have layers. So for her, since she's little, she just wants a cute little simple haircut, I'm just gonna hold it down like this. And you can either, kind of what Sydney was showing you guys, you can cut it straight if you want to. And on her hair that would blend fine, but I usually like to point cut my layers just because I feel like it makes them blend a little better. So I'm just gonna hold it down like this and just kind of point cut into it. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's not, because of how I'm holding it, it's not gonna be laying like this. Does that make sense? So then you're gonna do the same thing, how I taught you guys the guide. You're gonna pick up a section that has some of that middle in there and do the same thing. You're gonna comb it out. And then you've got to remember where you held it the last time. And you always want your layers to be the same distance from the head. So like if I'm over here, you're going to want to hold it straight out from the head, if that makes sense. Unless you're wanting, never mind, I'm not going to say that. That's going to be too confusing. Okay, so you're just going to keep going the same distance away from the head, and you're just going to keep point cutting those layers like that. So that'll just give her some nice, you know, it'll just kind of help her hair lay a little bit better. It's not going to be super choppy layers or anything like that. But you'll just go around the head and put those in, and that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions or anything?
Yeah, what is the difference between like a point cut? Like what do you...
So a point cut, so basically if I was doing like a straight blunt layers, I would just be taking it and going like this. Like I don't want to like do it on her because I don't want to. So basically it just is a lot more blunt. Point cutting is really good for like layers. It's good for people who have really, really thick hair, like what Sydney said. Like if they have really thick hair and they don't want that like huge, blunt, heavy line down here, if you just take it like this and point cut into it like that, it'll just basically just kind of chop it up a little bit so it's not so heavy and thick at the bottom. Does that make sense?
I was just trying to figure out like what that's changing.
Am I spinning
like,
you?
what is that doing? Like I can see she's holding it different. I just can't figure out what result is happening.
So I just kind of boop, boop, boop. You just kind of diagonally cut into it, and it looks silly like that, but when it lays down, it lays a lot nicer than if you were to cut just like a straight line right there. But like I said, on her hair, she probably could have the straight line and it would look fine because her hair's pretty fine. It would lay pretty fine or pretty straight. So, anyways, do you care if I blow dry it? I brought my blow dryer, and she said she would like that, so I'll blow dry real quick. If anyone wants to learn how to round brush, I'll be doing it up here.
Christine, one more question.
Yeah.
So my 2-year-old Jerry, so like